all adoption begins with the trauma of separation and loss, whether that is an infant or an older child. This was something that was honestly lost on me. And one of the reasons I started to write was that, our daughter had two really traumatic events, and it was a long journey to, everything from acclimating to culture and food and caregivers. And there was so much there. Well, first I decided to write about the experience. So I wrote a memoir. And then just something I'm so passionate about is communicating to other prospective adoptive families about the trauma, the separation, the loss, and that love is not, as harsh as that sounds, love is not the answer for everything. Love is not going to fix everything.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hopeful Java, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Anna Maria Didio, and she is a social worker and adoptive mother who was inspired to write her memoir, L.I.F.E at the Border, an Adoption Adventure, after her own family's journey. And now she has a series, the L.I.F.E Adventures Series of children's books that really feature stories about adoption and foster care, trauma, identity, attachment, and grief. And her mission is to encourage open and honest exploration about what children are thinking and feeling within their own unique family after adoption or foster care. And this is what we're talking about in today's episode. She has such a fantastic story, her adoption story, and of love and heartbreak and hardship and struggle, but ultimately love. It's such a good picture of what a blended family and what blended family love really looks like. And she's going to share her story. And for those of you in your life who are contemplating adoption, or you have adopted, or thinking about adoption, or you have someone in your life who is on this path, this is such a good episode to share with them and to share this memoir that she has and these books that are for kids and the books that she has. And she'll talk about the books in the episode. And if you watch the video on YouTube, she'll show you some of the books. It's such a great way for kids to feel like they're not alone, right? She talks about like there's these kids that are sharing their experiences in the books, and it just really helps. It helps everybody. There's a lot involved when it comes to blended families, and she's going to go into all of this. It's such a good conversation. Let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Anna Maria, and I'm so excited for her to share her story today and talk about really a topic we've honestly never had on the show, talking about adoption and that journey and what that looks like. So I'm excited for you to share your story and just provide insight for so many families looking for hope.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So I guess let's just start with your journey through adoption and what made you make the decision to adopt and kind of what that looked like for y'all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, our journey began, as many adoptive families begin, with infertility. So I knew there was an issue, when I married my husband, because I was married previously and had trouble conceiving. Mm-hmm. And then we started the infertility treatments, all over again. So we had those problems addressed, and it was still not happening. So we looked into adoption, signed up with an agency, and lo and behold, I was pregnant. So we did have a beautiful baby girl. Oh. And then, but the chance to add to our family at that point was just not happening. Mm-hmm. And so we looked to adoption again. And it was interesting because there were so many choices. Adoption has changed so much during those years, and obviously since then. But at first, we focused on domestic adoption and open adoption agencies looking for an infant. And then, one delay after another, the agency that we originally signed with closed. And it was really quite it's just tough to kind of wait these things out. Then suddenly our daughter was 6, 7 years old. So we began to look into the prospect of adopting an older child. And just by chance, I saw an article in our local news about a church that was sponsoring a camp for children from an orphanage in Mexico. And at the end of the article, it said, and these children are eligible for adoption. So I contacted them, and that began the journey with our international adoption experience and Mexico.
How cool was that? So then what was that like for you in kind of starting this blended family where, I know a lot of people who adopt, they want a baby, right? They want to start from infancy. And so I'm sure it's a different experience when you're starting with, an older child. So what was that experience like for you and kind of blending those two together?
Well, first, the commonalities. I mean, all adoption begins with the trauma of separation and loss, whether that is an infant or an older child. So the specifics that you're referring to, it's interesting because this was something that was honestly lost on me. And one of the reasons I started to write was that, our daughter had 2 really traumatic events. The orphanage in Mexico was really, I'll say, just a wonderful environment. The women that cared for the children were loving, referred to as tias, and we're still in touch with them to this day.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So she had the trauma of leaving that. And at 7 years old, when she was, one day going to sleep in Cuernavaca, Mexico, and the next day living in suburban Philadelphia. I mean, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's all she's known. Yeah.
Yeah. So she had, trauma 2 times over. Yeah. And it was a long journey to, I don't know, everything from acclimating to culture and food and caregivers. And there was so much there. Well, first I decided to write about the experience. So I wrote a memoir. And then just something I'm so passionate about is communicating to other prospective adoptive families about this, the trauma, the separation, the loss, and that love is not, as harsh as that sounds. I mean, love is not the answer for everything. Love is not going to fix everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to ask you next, because I mean, it does seem like, love is enough when you can, build a strong, but it doesn't fix the trauma, right? So what did y'all do in terms of like, helping her adjust? And then, you had your other daughter helping her adjust, and then just being able to cope with all that.
Well, I'd say it's interesting. My advice and our strategy really turned out to be kind of threefold. First, we networked or contacted and sought out as many other adoptive families as possible, just to kind of get a familiar idea of what was their journey like, what's happening, just kind of stay in touch with their experience. Some had adopted from Mexico and other situations. So that was super helpful. Then when just looking at our own family and what we needed to accomplish, I thought it was just so important to identify a professional and give my daughter the opportunity to talk to someone else that was not us. Even though, we loved her to pieces, she had to be able to say things and build up trust. And I honestly don't know how well we achieved this. A therapist through the years changed, and as her needs changed. So it was just wonderful, though, to connect with these folks, through the years and have them help her. And then while all that was going on, we were also doing our research, just, what books to read, what was primal wound, what does that mean? And how do families address that, what to be aware of. So all that took place over years. And it wasn't as if, and that's, again, the reason I decided to write was that I just didn't know this coming in.
Sure.
It would have, I think my books, my message, an informed message can really benefit families.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what was that, the whole, like, working through the primal wound and all of that, like, what did that look like for y'all?
Well, that is a day-by-day adventure. So, I just tried to be as present as I could. And with both girls, we have, we always try to just basics, eat together. I participated in their sports and their brownies, and they're just, be active and present. And we had many tutors throughout the years. English took hold very quickly, but at the same time, there were struggles because English was not her first language. Right. And and for a while they went to the same school. And then my older daughter went to actually a different high school. So that sort of helped. So different strategies at different years, and just keeping attuned to that was really kind of the key.
Yeah. Yeah. So what inspired you? Because now you're writing children's books and you have your memoir, but now you're writing children's books. And so what inspired you to start writing children's books and kind of lend your experience to other blended families?
Well, I began to think, well, first of all, I enjoyed writing so much. And I thought, what was the vehicle where I could communicate to children and parents alike? And this reading experience is really just so valuable. So I've put together, actually, it's a series. And right now there are 3 books. 2 of them are right here. The third one's about to be launched. So there's Many People to Love. That's the first one. And it's just celebrating the love of the adoptive family. And the next book is called How I Wonder Where You Are. And it's the same girl. So the 3 books is the same family. And the main character, Carla, is, reflecting on her experience, noting that she does not look like her sister. And where did she come from? Who is she? What are her roots? And so I thought this was so important to kind of acknowledge and honor the birth mother, the birth family in the adoption triad, and have that as a message to families that your love is wonderful and your love will sustain this child, but the love does not take the place of the family that is unknown to him or her. Right. So there's always that wondering, and that's not a bad thing. That's just what this triad that I'm referring to is all about. So, and then the third book is very exciting. It's called Carla the Conqueror, and it's for children who does not have English as a first language and struggle in the classroom to read, specifically to read aloud. So building confidence and courage to read aloud in class.
That's so cool. I love that. What do you find as far as I mean, because there's a lot of challenges, I'm sure, just throughout the whole process. No, there's a lot of challenges. What did you find was the most difficult part for you in the journey, and what do you think was the most difficult part for your daughter, your adopted daughter, that for her?
Well, for me, it was not having that I'll say a positive continuum, or love equals wonderful family, love equals a great relationship. There was love there, but it was difficult for her to accept our love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I remember one, like a back to school night. I'm sure your listeners are familiar with that. So back to school night, we're at school, and our daughter, I think, was in 2nd grade. She started in 2nd grade, and the assignment was in the hallways, all the artwork. So draw a picture of someone who means so much to you, who is important in your world, who means so much to you. So I was at back to school night, kind of like skipping down the hallway, expecting to see this big poster board of me. I'm like, what?
Oh, no.
And I get there. What am I thinking? And her name is at the bottom of the poster board, but it's someone that I have no idea who this is. There's a blonde woman holding a baby. I said, what in the world? And so she explained herself, and it was, I couldn't help but be disappointed, but how silly was that? She has to find her own path to me.
Yes.
And it was not a direct line. And that was what was hard for me. And, equally for her, it was hard for her to accept that this is this was her life now.
Yeah.
It just took time. And I thought it was like, oh, great.
Here we are. We're family.
We're family. Isn't this wonderful? It's everything I wanted. And two lovely girls. Well, no, that does not happen in a year or two or three. It took many years with ups and downs. And that's part of what I hope the books will send as much as they can in a children's story, just kind of open that door to that thought that it is a process.
Right. And I think too, just like the acceptance of that, like, not trying to fight the journey, right? Like accepting that this is part of the process.
Exactly.
And it's, being okay with it. Yeah. Was there I know you said this took years, but was there a moment that sticks out in your head where you were like, okay, now we're a family, like now things are clicking? Was there a moment that sticks in your head that kind of identified that time?
There were little victories along the way. Yeah. Her, participation in the school play, the school play, as I write about in my memoir, was Annie, of course.
Cute. Yes, of course.
And so, and the main character, Annie, was our older daughter. So here we were sitting, watching this play out on stage, and we had literally just come from the orphanage, and our daughter is on stage, hard knock life. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is so, but she had just the presence to go through this and be in the chorus and learn the songs.
That's
and
amazing.
So she's was always a tough kid, very resilient, and has shown that all through, and of course now she's graduated from college. She's a professional woman. So she's, shown her true colors all along. And I knew it was headed in that direction.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's so cool. What would you give? What is, I guess maybe you have multiple ones, but the best pieces of advice, or the biggest pieces of advice you can give families who are either like maybe they're going through the process of the adoption process, or they're in the process of like blending their families? The biggest advice for those families
is to just be realistic with your expectations, and through that, other families, reading, and networking with, interviewing professionals about what you should be aware of, and getting those expectations kind of reeled in realistically is really the best that advice I could give.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. That's great advice. Well, and thank you for bringing this conversation. I think, I've dealt with family and friends who have either contemplated adoption or, tried adoption. I've had clients I've worked with that they've tried adoption, and it's a hard process. And I know like the friends that I've had that have tried, it's been, domestic, and it's an long emotional process. And so I'm so glad that there's resources out there like you and your books. And I love that you've made it children's books. And so that you can really get the family in on it and have it, show the perspective to the families and to the kids. So I love that you're bringing the story to that level too.
So you raise a good point in that the data shows that most of the adoptions in the U.S. now are domestic, and there's a great number of foster to adopt.
Right.
So that is also a journey that has its own ups and downs.
Yeah.
I have a close family member that did that, and I also would like to write about that, although that was not my direct experience. My family does have experience with that, and there are different hurdles and different timetables, and but the advice is sort of the same: is figure out how the processes are different, and work with professionals in the foster field. And it's just there are many other issues to be addressed.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So as we kind of wrap up this conversation, can you let everyone know where they can find out more about you and all of these books and books to come, where they can follow along?
Well, the books are for sale on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but
Perfect.
all of the links are on my website, and that's amdidio.com, amdidio.com. So there's There are some resources, free gifts, resources in the on the website, and things that we use as part of our family togetherness. Some, mixed up recipes like Latin lasagna
I love that.
family favorites. I think there was a lot of healing that took place in the kitchen.
Totally.
Where we did some, it was a good way to have the girls kind of work together.
Yeah.
And they turned out to have completely different personalities, which is somewhat interesting.
That is interesting.
I grew up, very close to one of my sisters, and you sometimes you think that's automatically going to happen, but it does not.
It does not. Yeah.
So that was another kind of lesson for me that things have to evolve, naturally. But still, as a family, we treasured those times together, vacations and things. So that's a little glimpse of that on my website.
I love the food piece. Food brings people together. So I love that that's how you were able to kind of connect both worlds. That's so cool. I love that.
Yes, especially cookies.
Yeah, totally. Definitely does. Okay, so the question I want to finish off with that I like to ask everybody, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Is be true to yourself. I mean, what is it that you are seeking in this world, and what will you contribute to this world, and just assess that honestly and truthfully, and be there for that purpose.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Anna Maria. Thank you for sharing your story and for just doing what you're doing to support other families, blended families and families going through adoption, and for sharing all of that with us today.
Thank you. It was really nice talking with you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.